Okay, we just wanted to start by introducing ourselves. I'm Amanda Hornick. This is my 10th year as a teacher, 8th year here in Iowa, and I've primarily been middle school, 6th, 7th grade. I've been a 6th grade teacher for 8 years now. We are very active on Twitter with everything that we're doing in our school, in our classrooms, and in our district, so please, if you're on Twitter, feel free to follow us. We love to see what everybody else is doing in their rooms as well. And we aren't talking about it in this session, but we're both very big proponents of blogging, and we use that with our students as well. So if you want to check out our teacher blogs, and then we just launched it with our kids, you can see how that works as well with our resources.
And my name is Jennifer Notton, and this is my 14th year teaching, special ed background, and then went over to the elementary classroom. And yeah, I mean, it's ever evolving as far as giving student voices. That's kind of where our journey has kind of taken us. Transforming the way we teach and how we teach, and really giving students a voice and collaborating with one another.
And so we just want to spend a few minutes kind of telling you guys about our journey and kind of so you understand our philosophy from where we're starting at today. So when I came to Pleasant Valley, which is where we teach at 8 years ago, Jen and I were in separate buildings. And we immediately realized that we had very similar philosophies. We wanted to give students voice. We wanted to shut down the classroom walls, kind of close those, or open those, I should say, and connect with other people. We wanted to make sure that they had an authentic audience. And so we did a lot of collaboration between our two buildings. And then 2 years ago, a spot opened up in our building, and Jen came over there. So we now get to work together every day. But a lot of the tech that we've been using, we've learned from iTech. So one of the things we're going to talk about with you all today is virtual reality. And that's kind of how our thinking with this whole planning process started, was 4 years ago at iTech, whenever they had Google Expeditions, and you can use this in your classroom. We were right on board. We wanted to bring it back, and we found ourselves coming back to the classroom and having students use the VR glasses, but we really didn't have the purpose behind what they were doing. It was kind of a fun activity that they could do, but we didn't have the justification for how do you connect it to the standards, how do you connect it to what's going on with ISTE, how do you connect it with the college and career ready. So that was really something where we sat down and we decided we need to really create something to justify not only the tech that we're using, but how we're choosing that technology. And so that was really within our purpose. And so within that, we created this driving force justification document. And if you're on this slide, there's lots of links in here to take you to different places. And so when we sat down, we really thought, well, when you're going to use technology, what's the first thing you look at? Well, you have to look at your standards. So for our grade, it's very unique because at our school, elementary, we're a K-6 building, we teach 6th grade, but we teach everything but science. Science is the one specialized portion of our school, which is very unique. So a lot of what we're going to talk to you about today has that ELA and social studies focus. So really, Iowa core standards, we're always pulling in those writing and reading standards because those go so well with social studies standards. And then we worked really hard with our innovation coach, which is our technology coach within our district, Beth Campbell, and you guys will get to meet her later today. She's actually the iTech Teacher of the Year. We linked in her website. She has amazing resources out there, and she actually is presenting tomorrow afternoon, so we really encourage you all to go to her session. But she is really driving home with those ISTE standards and connecting kids with other students. And so we looked at, well, how do we pull those ISTE standards? Then we look at the college and career readiness standards. That's been a big push within our school district. I'm not sure about within your school districts, but that's been a big focus on what bucket are you using and how are you incorporating that in. And so we found within social studies and within our ELA classrooms, that third bucket with the collaboration skills is really important to pull in. And then we kind of say, okay, we have this standard for our content standards, we've got this ISTE standard, we're using this college career readiness bucket, but what technology sources can we use from there?
No. The only thing I will add on is with Beth Campbell and her website. She has recently redone several aspects of it, and so she has a lot of connections on there as far as examples of how the design and the do of giving student choice and voice and making authentic learning. So she also has some podcasts out there, so a wide variety of resources that you can connect to. So make sure to check that out. You you'll find some useful information.
And she's got a lot of digital citizenship. She does a huge digital citizenship launch in the beginning of our all of our school years, so that might be another good resource for you all just to kind of incorporate that in.
All right. So kind of building upon that driving force of what we do, we looked at that justification. So if we have someone who comes in and says, well, why are you using this digital tool? We can back that up. And we back that up kind of looking, first starting with our standards. And, you know, the one thing we've found, especially with teaching ELA and social studies, how that is crossed over. And so you're going to see examples that we show you how there is a mix between what we're doing, and it really just makes our life easier because some things that we used to teach in isolation, now by the time we get there, it's like, oh, the kids already do that. So we look at that. We also always look at that SD standard, how we're, again, getting that creative learner, that voice out there, and then again, the college and career readiness is a big push for our district. You know, what bucket are we looking at? How are we continuing to push kids forward? And then lastly, it's that digital tool, because it kind of drives our purpose of what tool is going to be best in that authentic learning piece for our students.
So again, with this, just with this slide, we're hoping that that might be helpful for you all if you're trying to justify, or you have an administrator or someone else that's saying, well, why did you pick that tool? Having all of these planning protocol in place really helps with that justification. It's also helped us if we want to get a resource into our classrooms. We have, okay, well, here are the different standards that we're using, and you can see that they can see that bigger purpose, and it's not just that one isolated use of using that digital tool. And so we have several slides here with just different grade levels as an example to show you how we filled this out in the past. So our first example is one that we've used within 6th grade. So our past 2 years within our school district, they've pretty much revamped our entire science and social studies programs to fit with the new standards. And so everything is inquiry-based. And so we started with creating enduring understandings for each of our units. And so really that enduring understanding for us is always that driving force up at the very top. And so this is our first unit that we do. The opportunity is a driving factor that influences the development of global regions. For our grade level, we do a huge focus with ancient Egypt. So looking at the different opportunities that the ancient Egyptians had. And before we even got into what technology tool we were looking at, we really looked at with the standards what we wanted to accomplish. We have a lot of writing standards embedded in. And then we pulled in some of those new social studies standards as well. The ISTE standard, we wanted students to be able to be knowledge constructors. We wanted them, it's a big research project that they do for 3 months where they are researching, they're taking notes, they're collaborating, and so that was the big one with the knowledge constructor. And we also have a ton of collaborative work within there as well, and so that was that other ISTE standard that we pulled in. The college and career readiness bucket, each of the examples you guys see today, I mean, it's usually bucket 3 for our kids. And for elementary, we see that's the big push because there's so much of that collaboration with the speaking and listening. And so after looking at all those pieces that we pulled in, we felt like the best tool to use with our kids was Google Expeditions. So what our kind of twist that we had our students do was, it wasn't just, we're going to lead you with the Google Expedition, but at the very end of their inquiry unit, they actually create an Egyptian museum. And so they have to develop with their team different exhibits. And the kids, they have 4th grade students that travel through these different live exhibits that they make. And so rather than just have us guide the students through these Google Expeditions, the students looked at, well, what do we want to teach the 4th graders? They found a Google Expedition that they really felt was useful, but then they had to write their own script using all of their research notes. And so we found really the end product. We like the student scripts better than some of the original Google Expedition scripts. And it had the rigor, it had the writing, it had the research, it had the thinking process. They had to collaborate with it and practice with their peers. And those are just 2 of the Google Expeditions that they used, and then they wrote their own scripts for. But then it was that justification whenever we wanted to get a VR cart from our district, because we have one that floats around our district, or we wanted to buy more of the VR glasses, we took this to our administrator and said, here are all the plans that we have in place, here's how we're backing up what we're doing, and then we got the support that way. So that's just one way we've used this.
And I'll just add on, and especially when we first started with Google Expeditions, and again, we were introduced to it 4 years ago, and looking at the topics, I mean, it's a great resource if you're not familiar with that expedition as far as the background of it. So as a teacher, I mean, it's nice to be able to have that resource, to be able to lead you through and lead your kids through, just kind of as that platform. But then as you, we've seen as we've developed it, you can just add so much more to it. So it's a good starting point.
And if you click on the Google Expeditions, it's highlighted there, there's a Google document, it's a Google sheet basically that is continuously being updated with all the new Google Expeditions that are out there. And so you can see the new, I mean, there was just a new one that was added last week. And so it's nice though because you can search based on your topic instead of going into expeditions and trying to search and then you click on the expedition, oh, does that actually have the images that I want? If you click on that link, you could search this document. It will tell you the name of the expedition. It will tell you the exact titles of the slides. And then they even sometimes have lesson plans linked in there as well for you. So it's a great organizational tool. And like I said, it's constantly being updated. So that way you kind of know the newest things that are out there.
And so since I'm in here, I just clicked on that link. It gives you, again, the breakdown of the title. If you scroll over the description of it, you're going to have a link possibly on there. This one doesn't. And then there's some additional materials that you can access from here. It is, you know, it's a lengthy document, so there is that.
There were like over 900 expeditions that people have made. So, but it does give you a good overview. And the big thing is at the bottom, you all probably, I mean, if you use expeditions within your classrooms, you know they have the AR, VR, but you can search it too down the bottom. So it tells you these are just the VR ones, and those ones are the AR.
And then you can search it and then be able to see which ones are out there that might fit your needs. Okay, so one thing that we did over the summer is we taught a virtual reality to teachers in our school district, and one of the teachers that participated was a 4th grade teacher. And you know, she had the idea of, she really wanted to launch their social studies with bringing in some geography. And at this point in time, they already had their enduring understanding established. They knew kind of their goal for the unit, but they wanted to bring some concrete examples in with students that they could continually rely back to. They, you can see, they already broke down the standards, the inquiry, and the content base for social studies. They already had identified the ST standards, the college and readiness, and then it was just like, where do we go from here? And so they launched the beginning of the year looking at different geography places within the United States. And so students could get, you know, have that grasp of reality, like, how is Iowa different from like Texas? And one conversation they had is they looked at the irrigation system in Texas and why there was the round fields, and it spurred conversation with that. And then they were able to like basically take a field trip there and make connections later on. So it was, and they can continuously bring that back. In addition, they've even used some AR resources with the Industrial Revolution because it's a hard concept to teach students, and so they were able to bring those concrete examples to students. They can make the connections. So again, it's just that real life experience that students can rely back on as you are going through the learning process.
And another thing we talked about, just that justification to administrators, what you're doing, or if you want resources, but we've started using this tool as a tracking device. So we're looking at, okay, well, how many teachers are actually using this tool, how many teachers are using this type of technology, and then trying to get more resources. So it's that way to kind of monitor, well, we actually need more of the resources in that. Well, what's your proof? Well, we've got each of these planning documents that we have that teachers use.
This is just a slide. Again, it's the resources. It provides you to different links. The Holly is just a database that you can go and you can search. The only caution I'm going to just say is make sure you preview the screens because some of the screens I looked at, and it was like, oh, I wouldn't use those with my students. So there's a wide variety of resources out there that you can search for. There's the Google, the VR, AR that we just showed you, database. And the tests for schools was actually a link that I found through the Google Expeditions. So there's a great resource that you can see how teachers have used it within the classroom, kind of just to spark some interest for yourself.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Tour Builder versus Tour Creator. Have any of you used Tour Builder and Tour Creator within your classrooms? Okay, so they're both great tools. They look similar because there's just that one word change, but there are vastly different opportunities with both. We're not really going to show you how to. The reason you can Google like the how to set it up. It's very simple to work through. We're going to talk to you about the basics on the difference between the two and how you might use them within your own classroom. So Google Tour Builder, it kind of looks like a very basic website whenever you go to it. It actually says Google Tour Builder beta version. It's been out there for about 3 years. We've used it with our students. But it's a great place to, I'm going to just go ahead and skip to the next slide as I talk about it. It's a website that your students can basically build travel trips. And so they can, if you're having them track someone's journey, we've used it for, we do live streams with the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., where they will listen to a Holocaust survivor tell their story. So the students will actually read the person's bio and then track their life journey, basically across the world where they've gone. They've done it with one of our inquiry units, where they look at certain places that they're studying geographically. So what's nice about Tour Builder is that you can see a larger version of that map and your starting and stopping points. And so if you're trying to help kids to understand geography or places on a map, it's a great resource for them. It's great to tie in any of your writing standards, your research standards, because it provides an opportunity for students to type in the text. You can also have them pick, they basically pull in images that people have uploaded to Google 360 images. And so your kids can, when they pick out a location, they can have that little Google man, and they can see all the different areas that people have taken 360 photos within that location and pick that. Or they can pull in a 2D image from Google and have that as part of their focus. The one big difference with Google Tour Builder versus Tour Creator that I'm going to talk about next is Google Tour Builder can only be viewed on a computer. You can't download it onto a phone. So really very different purposes for that. So you can embed a link in and you can share the links. We've had students create their own websites where they become basically travel agents as part of one of our units, and they have to create this own travel package, and so they have a link in there and it shows all the different places that you can go. Because it's really more of that computer website version, the images are really, really high quality, and the pictures, and it's very interactive. Your kids can click next and back and forth and all sorts of things of that nature. If you actually click on this link at the top, it will take you to the Tour Builder website. And if you have a Google, our school just changed to a Google school, so all of our kids have the Google Gmail accounts. It's super easy to use because since they already have their Gmail account, you could just have them sign in the corner right up at the top. And once you sign in, you can start creating a tour, and it walks you through. It's very user-friendly. Our 6th graders figure it out very easily. And you could just put in points of locations and it'll search it just like on Google Earth, basically. So a couple of the features whenever you get into Google Tour Builder is this is pretty much your home page over here, and you have your introductions, you can have your basics, what your student is going to be looking at, and then each of these over here allows you to enter at a different point. And it really is unlimited. We've had kids go up to 15 points. And so it's not something to where it slows down or it won't save the final version if you get too many points in. And these are just a couple of screenshots from what we've had our kids do. But you can see here, they've got the 360 photo. So if they're on that computer, you can literally scroll through and see that 360 view. They have a text that they've typed in. Do you link any of the ones?
So, for instance, this is you can see how it, this is an example that's right on the presentation. So you can see how a student, we had a couple students who created this, based on, and again, with addition, collaboration from other students. So they were kind of in charge of creating the main piece of that. They were traveling from O'Hare. In this case, they were going to Italy, and they had focused main focus points where they wanted to visit. And so you can see as it's going through, they had to pick certain images that they wanted to highlight, that they were focusing on. In the middle part, you can see they have the image, but then they had a description there. So that's how we pull in those writing standards. We really look at that authentic piece of writing. We look at tourism websites to really, that creative piece, that they can see that this writing is something that is done in real life, and they really take an interest to that. And yeah, I mean, as she's Amanda's going through, you can see just those vivid images that they've researched. And so just kind of back it up, they've done a lot of research along the way to then be able to find out what, where they want to highlight and why it's important, because our big enduring understanding is where we live impacts how we live. And so they have specific areas that they're focusing on: Italy, I do Greece, China, and India. And we all take a different area, and then what specifically in there? Where would we want to visit? Why do people go there today? What do they want to see? And really, like, how are their lives different or not so different than their lives? So it just brings that back into the classroom. Again, we always look at breaking down the classroom walls. So you can go through and you can see lots of different examples of how they have done that. So another example that I wanted, click on it, that you are also going to see that we've done on here. This is Adobe Spark. That's just a link, and you can see where our kids have done this itinerary, so you can kind of see where that comes from. And then that tour builder is embedded within that. It's their culmination project where they're highlighting, they're selling their tour package to fourth graders. And they do actually bring in Google Expeditions along with that. So it's just a nice tie with it. So there's lots of layers, lots of weeks of research that goes along.
Have you all used Adobe Spark Post page within your classrooms? It's another one I would write down. I mean, it took you right to the Adobe Spark page on their website. It is such a great tech tool to use. If you have if your kids have Google emails, it's even easier now because there's a sign in with Google button, and it is basically a free tool where your kids can create websites. They can create what they call a virtual poster, and then they can also create short videos. And everything is linked within websites, and it looks so professional, their work. They actually can see what other companies have been doing, and so it's a lot of branding as well, and it works really well with the ISTE standards because it's that whole idea of sharing out what you've done and doing so in a respectful manner and using those tech tools. So it's another great source that again, some examples of our kids have been linked there, but you can see what 12-year-olds can do. Yeah. So it is a great resource to use within your classrooms. And again, this just is kind of our justification for why we use Google Tour Builder with our students. Our big thing was the informational text, gathering resources, and then the cause and effect of past developments. The big thing I love about Tour Builder is, I don't know about your students, but our 6th graders really struggle with geography. They don't know where places are at in the world and the locations relevant to other locations, especially in places like Europe, where the countries are so much smaller and it's very easy to travel from one to the other, just with distance-wise. And so Google Tour Builder really helps to establish that geographic understanding within your students. And the writing piece, I love that it's got that factored into it, and it really gives students ownership. And it's also a way for them to share their voice with others, because you can send those links out to other people. You can tweet them out. We will oftentimes tag National Geographic that will respond back, or the Adobe Spark company that they will tweet them back. So it helps students to really have that ownership as well. Okay, so Google Tour Creator is similar in some aspects to Tour Builder, but it gives you a lot more options. The big thing with Google Tour Creator, You don't see the geographic piece that you do in Tour Builder. So you don't see the overall map and where you're starting and ending. Google Tour Creator is just 360 images. And so there's two different ways you can take that. You can create your own Google Tour Creator based on the 360 images that other people have uploaded to Google, or you can create your own if you have a 360 camera. And we have one that we'll show you guys that we've used in the past. If you want to just click on it, and you'll be able to see, the Google Tour Creator just looks a lot more updated, I think, than Tour Builder. You can see, again, sign in if you have a Google account, super easy. Just, if you click Get Started, it really lets you go right into, okay, well, what's your tour of? It gives you examples of other tours. So if you teach different places across the world, you might find one that's already established for you. And the pictures are really high quality if it's one that's been established by someone else. So if you go back to the slide. Another great thing about Google Tour Creator versus Builder is if you create a tour as a teacher, there's a voice narration option. So if you've got students that struggle in the area of reading, or comprehension is something that they struggle with, you can actually record your voice saying whatever text you typed up, and then the students have the option to listen to that. So it's great if you've got really a diverse group of learners within your classroom. The other thing that you'll see on some of the slides that we have selected is that you have the ability to take that, because your original picture is going to be a 360, but you can overlay a 2D image on that. So if you've got, if you want to look at the next slide. So this is a picture whenever we were both in Germany. We'll talk to you guys a little bit about that this summer. But we took our 360 camera from our school district with us, and it was kind of on a whim. We're like, let's try it out. Let's see what we can do with it. And so we would take these pictures, and right here we're at the Berlin Wall. And so we are up in one of the watchtowers, which would be looking down on what was once East Berlin. And so it was a great image just to give students that overall example, but we wanted them to really see, well, what does a watchtower look like? So once I uploaded this 360 photo to Google Tour Builder, or Tour Creator, I was then able to say, I'm going to do an image overlay. You just click on a button. I selected it was this spot, and then if you're actually in the Tour Creator, you can click on that image, and then it brings up a 2D image of a close-up of what one of those watchtowers looks like. And this is amazing if you use expeditions within your classroom, because you create this all on a computer, and then you get a link at the very end whenever you say publish. You can then send that link to anyone's phone, and if they have Google Expeditions, you can then open up the tour that you created in Google Expeditions. And so it's great if you are traveling, or even if you want to have your students do something with the community in your area, and you want to highlight something that's in your area or your school. We just kind of brainstormed. We're going to have students use a 360 camera around our building this year, because we are really big in establishing a culture of readers. Well, our building is, we want to show everybody that everybody reads. So these kids are going to be in charge of documenting 360 photos of kids reading around the building and doing different things with reading. They're going to create their own Tour Creator and then upload it to Google Expeditions and put it on our website, so people can see, well, what does it look like inside of Hopewell Elementary School with a culture of readers. So a few features, this is what it looks like on the website whenever you're building it. So again, if you go to Tour Creator, click on that link. Very simple process. You can kind of just play it. I took like 30 minutes, played around with it a little bit, figured out what I liked, what I didn't like. One thing that, I'll be honest, kind of scared me at first. If you're uploading your own 360 photos, they don't look as high quality on the computer. And this photo looks so great on my phone. What happened? Well, it's just because it's expanding that image. If you download it back into Google Expeditions, your photos look really good. Like on the phone, and you're giving your kids a tour. So don't get worried if you're like, you pull it up on a computer and it doesn't look as great as it did on the phone. It's just because it's stretching out that image. If you're able to type in your text right here, and then it actually lets you add in, like I said, those points of interest. And whenever you use it on Google Expeditions, it's great because, again, have you guys used Google Expeditions before in your classrooms? Okay, it's an app, super easy to use. Play around with it for half an hour, you'll figure it out in no time. But it lets you guide your students. So you can start them, you can stop them. When they're viewing something, you have a script to read. And so it's really helpful in that manner. this is just how we justified it, and we actually use this tool because we're trying to get more 360 devices, or the virtual reality devices within our district. And they're building a new school, so we can't apply for grants. We're like, okay, here's our justification tool for why we need this. And so it really went into, with us, it wasn't necessarily a student-created item, it was a teacher-created item. And so we said, okay, well, we wanted to gather information from primary sources. We wanted to show kids how, especially with this one, with the Berlin Wall, how has technology influenced what people have access to. And then with ISTE, it was the idea of being that global collaborator. That was our really big thing. And then the college and career readiness was basically having students construct meaning for themselves. We talked about what does that division look like? How would that have felt for you? And then we created Google Tour Creators. So if you click on any of these points here, you can actually open it up in your computer. So if you're someone that's never used Expeditions before, or if you have, I would highly suggest if you get time this week or next, click on this link, and you can see the link at the very top in the URL, but send that to your phone and open it in Google Expeditions, because then you can really see the difference between the computer version and your phone version. And so this is us at Point Alpha, which is where they said if the Cold War would have turned hot, it would have been in this place, and there was literally a division line for where the wall that split East and West Germany was. So you can see here, yeah, so this is where I'd overlaid an image, and it was just a 2D picture that we had taken of a gentleman who was one of our tour guides, but his family had the farm that was on the border. And so he talked to us during our trip about how him and his friends would go to the very line of the border, and they would try to get the GDR troops to wave at them from the east. And he said that the troops would never wave at them, and then there was one guy who, when he turned his back, he waved his hand behind him because he didn't want the guy who he was on the patrols with to turn him in for talking to kids on the other side. And so it was really interesting to hear his story, and I knew I wanted to bring that back to the kids. And so with that image overlay, I was able to do that. And so if you're actually in Google Expeditions, when you watch this tour, you can guide students and click on that, and it'll pop right up on their screens for them. So there's so many opportunities. Like I said, the big thing I would definitely note, if you're gonna make a tour creator, that I learned the hard way from, one of the locations that we went to in Germany that I made, I had 7 slides, and they were super detailed. I had 3 image overlays on all of these slides, and I was super excited about it, and it was too large. It wouldn't upload to the final one, and so I put like 3 hours worth of time into it and then realized it wasn't gonna work. So I just split it up. So that's one thing I would say, give it a max of 4 slides if you've got a lot of interest points on each slide. If you just have the 360 photos themselves, you can do at least 6 different ones. And so again, we've had kids use it on the computer, but I don't think that the pictures do it justice because they're just not as high quality as whenever you look on your phone. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing I would say, especially if you're not familiar with these, take time to play, because when you can really play with Tour Builder, you'll be able to see the difference between that and Tour Creator and how it might work with your students or any of those areas, because that's the big thing is it takes a little time to figure it out. And honestly, what I did, I'll YouTube stuff. I'll say, hey, Google Tour Creator, and I'll YouTube it, and there'll be like a 5-minute help video, and then you figure it out right away. Okay, so the 360 cameras, that's one of the last things we're going to talk to you guys about. Have any of you used a 360 camera in your classrooms?
I will say, it was at the beginning, it was just a lot of playing around with it, just seeing like the angles of how you hold it up.
Yeah.
When we were there, just trying to capture different places where there were no people in the room, and so if you have that opportunity to do that, that works great.
Honestly, I think it's faster to take a picture with this than it is my cell phone. Because my cell phone, I pick it up, I've got to put in my passcode, then I've got to go to the camera roll, and this, I linked it so that Theta SC is the one that we have. This one's $199. I just looked on the price. And this is actually one that our district had purchased and that one teacher was using, and then it kind of sat. And so we thought, well, let's take it with us whenever we go someplace. And so this version, I highly recommend it. You just hit the power button right on the side, and you have the option to take a photo or a video. We primarily did photos. I did a couple videos, And it was okay, just constantly moving around. So you literally just lift it up, and then it takes a photo. That's it. So super easy. The only thing is, you don't know, you can't see the actual photo until you go back to either download it on your desktop or your laptop, or most of the 360s I was looking at, just to get more information for you all have apps. So this one has an app that goes with it. I downloaded it on my phone, and then I just have to have them both connected to Wi-Fi, and I literally can just pull in those photos and select which ones I liked. I liked looking at them on my phone first because the picture quality was so much higher than looking at it on a laptop. And so I kind of narrowed down, okay, I like this one, we don't like this one. We kind of had our finalized photos, and then we put it into the computer. If you click on that, just ways to take your students for exploration, this was just, it links back to my blog, and it talks about the Germany trip that we'll kind of end with here today. But if you go down to the very bottom, Jen, it has the links to all of the tour builders, or the tour creators, those 360 tours that you can download into Google Expeditions that we made. So you might have a teacher in your school that teaches something with World War II, or Germany, or the Cold War,
or even like our 5th grade, they do the book that I divided, and just bring that realization of what does it look like, and we can't go to just Germany on a whim. So it's this year we're really going to connect with our 5th grade teachers so that the students can see what does it look like when they're reading this book and making those connections.
So you could just see the ones that we created. Like I said, this will bring up on your laptop, and so I highly suggest you take that URL, send it to your phone, open it up in Expeditions, and you can just see, oh well, how can I lead students with this? And it's another example for you all. I think that there's so many opportunities with these 360 cameras, and the price is dropping on them, but it's something where if your district has funds for something with technology and they're looking, it could be a really cool tool, and I think that it can be something to showcase something that's unique within your school or your school district. And like I said, it just takes time to play. I do think if you're taller, it works maybe probably better. I'm short, so I'm always like making sure to reach up my hand. One thing I noticed with some of the people that were on this is they make basically a selfie stick for these. I wish I would have had those, because when you look at one of the, if you go to the next slide, the 360 photos, when you download it on your computer, I had a little bit of a, oh my gosh moment. It's now like a panoramic photo. When you go to download it back into Tour Creator or Expeditions, it automatically turns it back into a 360 photo. So on my computer, whenever I originally downloaded them from here, I was like, I just took all these 360 photos. Why are they showing it as a panorama like this? It's just that formatting. It goes back to the formatting. And you can see, like, there's my thumb on one of them. So in the 360, you don't see it because you're really looking around. If you look down, you'll obviously see me. But the people that were using the selfie sticks, it was a really, really good image of nice and high up. And like we said, one of the things we tried to do was, as we would go places, I would be the last one out of the room, and then Jen would close the door real quick, and then I would take a picture. But I think in places you go on vacation, or if you go to Washington, D.C., or anything, like your kids would find it so fascinating to see those places.
That they might not be able to travel to, and and I, like when I went to New York, I was like, oh, I should have taken that, like just to bring it back to my kids. So it's just that authentic learning piece that they can travel but not actually go there. All right, so we are going to talk about our opportunity that we had this summer, and we had handed out some resources for you. And so we participate in the Transatlantic Outreach Program, and it's basically a way to connect United States to Germany. And a lot of times when you think of Germany, you think of World War II, and not necessarily the most positive aspects of it. And it's really kind of to connect today's world of what the features, what connections they have with each other, and what they're doing. And so we were, this is a link out there that you have resources that are available for you. They will give you an overview of their program, and the big thing is the one to borrow together. And so lots and lots of resources that you can have.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we've taught, World War II has been a big part of our 6th grade curriculum for 8 years now, and I was shocked at how many resources were out there. And there's a ton of STEM resources if you're a STEM or a science person out there too, and social studies, that are free and great lesson plans, and they just moved to the whole inquiry model. So now all of their lesson plans that they have go into inquiry with that. And so this is just like a list of all of the resources.
So just to highlight the bottom right-hand corner, the Germany in Focus, that is for more middle school, secondary, and there's a wide variety of resources that are available. It breaks it down to the inquiry, it builds background of it, it even breaks down in sections of the geography, the immigration, the reunification with the Cold War, and their economy, and so you can see a wide variety of ways that you might teach it to make those connections. All of these are available and free, and we'll tell you how to get those, but they are a link that are out there on the website. If you are interested, there is a Google form. It should be available to you. It's not going to be a promotion where they're going to sell your information. But what you'll do is you'll be able to get resources such as this. And if you do have this book, there's an overview of what what they offer, how they're connecting to classrooms. But they'll send you some information, and you can actually download some of those resources digitally. So you don't have to have them, paper copy.
Right. And they're always sending out new ones. They're going to have a new one with the newest lesson plans with the inquiry model. So we really highly suggest you fill out just that form, and you can get those resources. And then the other thing that they also offer is if you ever want to have your classes connect with schools in Germany, they'll help you make those connections. So we're actually having our students do kind of a year-long connection with students from Germany. And then I know we're almost out of time and you guys want to go get your seats. But we do want to talk to you real quick about the teacher study program.
So I'm going to just say, if you have this book in the back, it really kind of gives details as far as the top programs. We were part of the top 3 program that we were lucky enough to be a part of, but it does break that down. Amanda has her blog out here that will just detail what every day looked like. It was a 2-week expenses paid trip to Germany. We started actually in DC. We flew from DC to Germany, and we traveled to several different places. We did have to put it on a deposit, but we got that back when we wrote our lesson plan. It was about a $6,000 trip. I will say it was such a unique experience because the people that we were able to make connections to, like the gentleman you saw in the picture, like how his family was affected and the divide, some of his family was on the east and the west. One gentleman we met, he escaped just in that area, and he crawled over a minefield, and he talks about his experience and how it affected him and the risks that he took.
We went to the school in Baja, and the students actually gave us a tour of their school and of their town, and they talked to us about the stumbling stones, where the victims of the Holocaust were in their town, and how the town had kind of turned their back on those people, and how they're trying to kind of repay that back now, how their town was divided by the wall. There was literally the wall went through one of the houses, and how when the wall came down, their parents, who were in middle school and high school at the time, went across because they wanted to go to a Western grocery store, and they'd never seen bananas before. I mean, it was kind of those personal stories that you would never get to see otherwise. And here you got 2 meals a day, and it was a great thing because you didn't have to worry about where am I going next. Everything was scheduled for you, and you're with a group of people that are very passionate about the same things that you are. So we highly suggest it's a very detailed application to apply, but start on it earlier rather than later, and it's a great opportunity. It changed how I teach and kind of how I look at things. So it's just another tour question. So let us know if you guys have any questions. I know you guys want to get to the keynote, but click on the links. We hope that you all have any resource that you need. We've got more up here, so if you've got someone at your building, you're like, hey, I'd love to grab, can I grab a couple of these for my team? Please do so. We have a ton of maps up here, and we'll leave them up here in case you don't want to carry a map around with you all day, or you want to grab more. Just come back to this room, and we'll have them. We might actually leave them just in that back corner over there, and that way, if you need anything, you've got them. So, thank you. We hope
Thank you very much.